we live in a world of misinformation and fast content, and finding those trusted, reliable voices are very hard to find. And listen, when the weather starts changing, there is one person that we definitely trust. And in my household, when we light up a prayer candle, it's with Ada Monzón's face, okay? So she is the chief meteorologist at WAPA TV, and she'll be moderating this panel along with Dr. Tom Markusic. He's an American rocket scientist and space tech. He founded Firefly Aerospace. He's now leading with Gig Engineer. He's worked for the U.S. Air Force. He's worked for NASA. He's worked for Blue Origin, SpaceX. Listen, guys, if a billionaire wants to go to the space or to the moon, Tom's the guy that you call, okay? After which, well, lastly, we're going to have Israel Figueroa, retired U.S. Air Force, co-founder of Vert Space, and he's also leads programs at Firefly. So, you know, he's taken the mission of launching strategic initiatives and strengthening national security, and those are going to be our first three people on stage. So please, big round of applause.
Good morning. How are you all doing? Really? Good. Wonderful. Thank you for the kind introduction, Manolo. And welcome, Tom and Israel, to this panel. This is the first panel on this summit, so yeah, it's going to be great. Ready for Liftoff, the future of aerospace industry. And we're going to be focusing on the potential of the aerospace industry in Puerto Rico. So first of all, I would like to know you personally. Okay. So I would like to know where did you grow up? And how did you get interested in the aerospace industry? Tom.
Sure. Start testing. Well, first of all, it's great to be here this morning with everyone. Look forward to the conversation. I've been roaming around Puerto Rico for about the last year and a half, and it's just been growing on me, and excited to be here and excited to do the kind of things we're going to talk about today. Yeah, people often ask me, you know, how did I get interested in doing this? And the truth is, when I was 12 years old, I was abducted by aliens. And so that should wake some people up. No. The truth is, I'm just a farm kid from Ohio, grew up in a blue-collar background, kind of had sort of a J.D. Vance experience, you know, American dream, growing up poor, blue-collar, went to Ohio State, went to Princeton, then ended up working, as I said, for NASA, Air Force. And then I met this guy who had started a banking service and had this crazy idea that he was going to launch his own rockets, and NASA sent me to go see what was going on. His name was Elon Musk. And I just kind of like bought into what was going on there and went native and started working with Elon. And what we really did there is we changed the paradigm from a government-led space initiatives to privately led. Totally transformative. I give Elon all the credit. You know, he's the Henry Ford of our time. But like, you know, many of those .com companies, other companies came out of it. I wanted to help there be more SpaceXs in the world. So I worked for Jeff Bezos at Blue Origin, Richard Branson at Virgin Galactic, and then realized they weren't going to be the next SpaceX. So I had to start my own company, which was Firefly Aerospace. And you know, just very proud of that company and working with folks like Fig at that company. And again, here, you know, farm kid from Ohio, we've made it to space, multi-billion-dollar company, like a dream come true. But today, you know, we're here to talk about the future. And as we get into this conversation more, I look forward to talking about the cool and amazing things we can do here in Puerto Rico.
My name is Israel Figueroa. I go by Fig in the aerospace industry, space industry. Most people know me as Fig. Nobody knows who Israel is. But I say that I kind of stumble into the space arena. I study here in Puerto Rico, the University of Puerto Rico, Maya West. And in a basketball game, I ran into the Commandant of Cadets that the Air Force ROTC at the time, which I didn't know that even existed. And you know, after that basketball game, she invited me to go and understand and have a look at the detachment, the Air Force ROTC detachment. And you know, from that meeting, I was introduced to the Air Force, and that opened up. You know, after that, you know, 20-year career in the Air Force, I had the opportunity to be the chief engineer for the Delta II launch vehicle, I work at the headquarters level, working launch vehicle requirements for the national security, and then I procure rockets for our national intelligence satellites at the National Reconnaissance Office. After a 20-year career, I retired, and then I joined a little company called Firefly Aerospace, which happened to be the company that Tom founded. And now I am there. I've been there for 2 years, where I lead all the national security programs, business development for Firefly Aerospace, as well as I also founded my own space company called Vert Space, where I advise small startups in the space domain, and I help them navigate how to get opportunities within the government, specifically within the DoD and the intelligence community, where to find those opportunities, how to talk to the customers, how to find funding for those great ideas that they all have in this growing space market. And I'm really excited to be here, and I want to say thank you to the ICON event and organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak here today.
So what opportunities do you see in Puerto Rico for the aerospace industry?
Well, in general, there are technical reasons and financial reasons that drive a company, the type of companies we're building. Technically, when you launch rockets, you really want to do it from the southernmost place you can. It gives you a lot of benefits for the type of orbits that you can achieve. And given that we're American companies, we're restricted to doing our type of activities from United States territory. So Puerto Rico really represents kind of the closest southernmost location for us to do this kind of work. So from a technical perspective, it's really optimal place to launch. From a business perspective, there's just a lot of vitality here with what Invest Puerto Rico is doing. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit and entrepreneurs that are coming to the island, and then those are the type of people you want to lock arms with and go and do this type of work. So those are the key things that I see.
So a lot of the Puerto Ricans may not know that Puerto Rico is one of the biggest exporters of engineers, certainly Hispanic engineers in the world. And NASA is full of Puerto Ricans. The Space Force, a lot of the big space companies, aerospace companies, Lockheed Martin Aerospace, there's tons of Puerto Ricans working those programs. Like Tom said, Puerto Rico, because of its location, geographical location, is an ideal place to create a spaceport or to provide the ability to access space. So I believe there's a big opportunity there if we were able to tap into that opportunity. And I knew of this from the time that I was a captain working in the Space Force, in the Air Force at the time, that Puerto Rico, there was rumors of building a spaceport in Roosevelt Roads, and nothing happened. I mean, we're talking about 2004, and everybody talks about it. Everybody sees the opportunity. Nothing happened, and I'm seeing a little bit of motion now. I believe that if we can create access to space in Puerto Rico, and that with the combination of the talent, the local talent that we have here, the university talent that could feed that ecosystem, as well as the talent like myself that left the island but would like to find opportunities to work here, there is a recipe here to tap into that growing market on the space market. The global space market is somewhere around $650 billion today, and it's expected to grow to over $1 trillion by 2030. And Puerto Rico could tap into a fraction of that over the next few years if we really put our effort in and start taking the steps towards in that direction.
When we're talking about spaceport, we're thinking about vertical launches and horizontal launches. Can we compare the pros and cons of vertical and also horizontal launches?
Sure. Just to get everybody kind of calibrated by what we mean by that. So vertical launch is your typical rockets that we've been launching for the last 50 years. Everything from the Apollo days of Saturn V's to Starship that we see launching today, and indeed what we do at Firefly, albeit with smaller rockets. But another way you can do it is to actually go down a runway and take off and go to space that way. Now that's a lot more difficult, and a lot more futuristic, but it's actually one of the real things that's drawn me to Puerto Rico, and really, I'm not getting any younger, and looking at horizontal launch is something that I kind of see as my magnum opus of what I want to do in my career. And what that ultimately means is access to space that's more like airline-like operations. You go to an airport and you go to space, by taking off at a runway, not this, major event with, this rocket off in the distance and things like that. That's the way I think a lot of space access has to progress. Having said that, that's a little bit off. I'd say 5 years, but I'm always optimistic, which it's probably more like 5 to 10 years. So I think for the next 5 years at least, it's going to be really important if we're going to have a spaceport here, to embrace and utilize the vertical takeoff rockets and maybe vertical landing as well, to kind of put Puerto Rico on the map and get things going. But us always having that North Star where once we're on the map, in the background, we'll also be developing the most advanced space systems that have ever been developed in history here.
I'm going to expand on what Tom said, because some people, there's also air launch, and air launch is not horizontal launch. So an air launch, as a difference, you're actually putting a rocket under the wing of an airplane, and you take off on an airplane, and then the rocket actually launch in the air, and it's relatively independent of where you launch it from or where you take off from, because you're taking off from an airplane. Horizontal launch is what we're talking about. What Tom is describing is it's a single stage to orbit, where it is the same airplane that takes off, goes to space, and then comes back and lands safely. And that's the future in space transportation. That's a point-to-point delivery, being able to get from point A to point B quickly, being able to go in space, do a mission, and then come back and land and bring experiments or whatever it is that you're doing in space. That's the future. And then in the middle there, you have the vertical launch, which we have been doing, especially in the United States, for the last 75 years. We've been launching rockets, putting satellites on orbit, and that's a very mature technology. And we, in Puerto Rico, we need that as a stepping stone to get to horizontal launch. Like vertical launch is what's happening today, it's operational, and it can help bring companies here to access space today. But then at the same time, we're developing that horizontal launch technology. That's where the future is going. So the way I see it is vertical launch is the today, horizontal launch is the future, that's tomorrow.
So what?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one to that thing to that I did want to make sure that folks heard Fig talking about, and that was this point-to-point mission. What we're talking about is this aircraft that could be used to go to space could also be used as a transportation system to go anywhere in the world. And this vehicle could go anywhere in the world in less than an hour. So imagine you could go from Puerto Rico to Beijing in under an hour, or really any other place in the world. And it really starts to make your head spin when you think about time zones of having dinner in London and breakfast in LA on the same day or something like that.
That's amazing, right? We're not dreaming, we're making it a reality, right? So what do you see then are the challenges for developing that spaceport in Puerto Rico? And how are you going to be facilitators of that process, or what needs to be done in order to facilitate the process?
Yeah, there are many, many steps. This is going to be a challenge. It's going to take a long time, but I think the first step is to embrace this as a project that is being undertaken by Puerto Rico. So, as I said, I've been here for about a year and a half, and it's really about forming partnerships and relationships, sharing the vision, hearing other folks' visions, understanding culturally, what's important here in Puerto Rico, and making sure that, as we're doing what we're doing, that we're hearing all the voices and that we're kind of taking everything into account when we build a facility like this. But also, as part of that, ultimately, what this is about is, it's a very uniquely American endeavor. When I think about what it means to be American or what America is, to me, two things come to mind: liberty and prosperity. And we're free people, but we're also the most prosperous people in the history of humanity. And that's ultimately the two things that I think are always my North Star when I'm doing anything. And going back to my background as a blue-collar kid growing up, blue-collar environment, and I understand how important high-quality jobs are to a society, and this prosperity background. So what we're talking about here is thousands and tens of thousands of 21st century jobs. If you look at like a SpaceX or Firefly even, these are tens of thousands of jobs with average salaries of over $100,000 a year. And all the man on the moon stuff and all the space stuff, it's cool, but at the end of the day, I think what we're really trying to convey is a prosperous vision for Puerto Rico. So that's a long answer to, but I think it's a really important thing that undergirds this. It's not just the technology. The technology is hard, but the rest of it's, I think we have to plant the seeds correctly to begin with, and just let Fig expand on more of the details about what it takes to make this happen.
Yeah, there's regulatory hurdles, right? You still need to get a license. There's environmental concerns, so you have to do environmental studies. Getting there's going to be no shortage of challenges and things that we need to do to get to opening a spaceport in Puerto Rico. But the benefits in the other end are so huge for the island and for the local economy that I think they pale in comparison with the work that we need to do. We need to put the work up front, but the benefit on the other end are huge for the local economy to be able to bring that talent that it's been leaking out to the United States over decades now, bring some of those in, open up opportunities for the new talent that has been trained in our universities to have a place where they can actually exercise their profession here locally in the aerospace industry. That would be a dream of mine. But the challenges will be plenty, and we will be ready for them.
But you need to have will. And
Yes.
definitely, if you have will, you can do it. And that's a message that we want to get across as well. However, do you understand that there are any synergies between other industries as well with the aerospace industry of what you have studied and seen in Puerto Rico? Where do you think are there are the most opportunities there?
Well, the thing that initially attracted me was the environment, and some of the the former military facilities that need to be redeveloped. I think are an incredible asset that Puerto Rico has, and that's one of the things that we would look forward to do is to revitalize those locations to be spaceports.
So, synergistic industry. So Puerto Rico is one of the as far as biotechnology is has one of the biggest concentrations of people that understand that industry and can build things. There's biotechnology, being able to do studies in space and zero gravity. It's a growing business that it will be synergistic to what we're already doing here in the island. Manufacturing in space manufacturing is another thing that is coming. That it's also the future, right? So think about a lot of the things that are happening on Earth today. We are moving to a world, and this. I'm in that industry every day, so I see it coming, but it's not apparent to the people that are not in that industry. A lot of things that happen on Earth today is going to start to move in space, like manufacturing in space, being able to build spacecraft. One of the most expensive things to do is to move mass out of the Earth atmosphere and put it in space. So in a lot of cases, it's easier to build something in space than trying to launch it out of the Earth atmosphere. And then space tourism. That's another one growing industry that will benefit from having a spaceport and having access to space. So I think there are plenty industries that are synergistic and that could benefit from having a spaceport here.
Yeah, I see that in the way that commercial space stations are, going to be part of that near future. It's not going to be too long that we're going to have that kind of opportunity. And I think that Puerto Rico, I still don't see it. That I don't think that people see it as a way to grow, and that's something that we have to really work on. So, how do you think that we can improve our message that this is an opportunity?
I think the one thing we haven't talked about is tourism. And I know there's a big emphasis on tourism in Puerto Rico. And this is completely synergistic with that industry. I'll tell you, if we have a spaceport there and maybe we have a space camp, where kids can come if there's an opportunity to come to Puerto Rico and do all the other amazing things you can do in Puerto Rico and watch rockets launch to space and go to museums or have your children participate in something like that. I think there's a huge synergy there, and it could really just enhance all the great work that's already been done in tourism.
Yep, I think getting the students involved at different levels, like from elementary, high school, and college, get them involved in the space industry, doing projects. One of the ideas that I have in my mind is to eventually do a competition out of the spaceport where we have the universities out of Puerto Rico competing against University of the United States, and feel that ownership, right? Feel that this is something that is good for Puerto Rico. It'll be Puerto Ricans will be building this for Puerto Ricans for the benefit of the future of Puerto Rico. And I think that messaging is so important, and it's going to be a hard battle, but one that we won't have to take on.
What skills and education is needed for that talent pool that is needed for the aerospace industry?
Yeah, I think a strong fundamental education like you get here at like UPR, for example, is basically what we need. It really comes down, when I hire people, I look for people that are smart, that have taken their education as really their job and took it seriously and learned the fundamentals really well, and that they have a passion and a strong work ethic. Those are the only things we need. If we have those things, I mean, those are, those aren't as plentiful as you'd expect. But if somebody has that, we can train them on everything else they need to be able to participate in this field.
Yeah, I mean, we already graduated a whole bunch of engineers out of Puerto Rico. And my background is I study electrical engineering, so I didn't study aerospace engineering, and I ended up working in rockets. You can learn the business. Now, I did get a master's in space operations, but it's I think we have enough talent. We have enough universities. There's some programs that we have to put in place to feed that ecosystem, and maybe do something at the lower levels, at the high school and elementary school levels. But a lot of the building blocks are there.
Are there any other successful stories from spaceports in other parts of the country that we can relate to and look into?
Other successful spaceports. I'll let Fig answer that. I mean, frankly, I think there are more like, we're just having an open conversation here. I think there are more bad stories about spaceports than there are good stories. And a lot of times they're just sort of ill-founded. Location is huge. It's like anything else in real estate, right? It's location, location, location. And if you look at some of these other spaceports that have been started, they're inland spaceports. So you've got Spaceport America in New Mexico. They're about to build one in Las Vegas. And the problem with those locations is, what you can do is sort of fundamentally limited because you're not adjacent to an ocean like Puerto Rico is. So I would just say that if you're going to build a spaceport, and I've built launch pads, around the country, and if I were going to build a commercial spaceport, I don't think there's any better location than doing it here in Puerto Rico.
Because of my role with Firefly, a lot of countries have come up to us to build spaceport or at least build launch sites in their countries. And I'm not going to name all the countries, but there's a number of them that I can disclose here. But I think one of the biggest success stories that is very akin to what we're trying to do here in Puerto Rico is the New Zealand story, where just one rocket company, Rocket Lab, built a spaceport in the Mahia Bay. If you search Google pictures, I'm putting that story together for something that Tom and I are doing. It looks like the Roosevelt Roads area. They went from having almost no space business, just one rocket company, and they all of a sudden became the fourth largest launch, a country. They have the fourth largest number of countries launch out of that. No, sorry, fourth largest number of launches out of that country in the world in a period of about 7 years. And their aerospace, the space industry specifically, not aerospace, space is a subset of the aerospace industry. Their space industry grew from almost nothing in 2016 to about $1 billion in 2018. It should be bigger now. So it's a success story. Just one rocket company, one spaceport that that started operating there, created an ecosystem, and now New Zealand is becoming one of the powerhouses in the world in the space arena. So I think that's something that is very much achievable in Puerto Rico. We actually have some advantages geographically and as far as the talent pool, because building rockets and having the ability to build satellites, it's not that easy. Most countries do not have that kind of expertise. We happen to be so close to the United States that a lot of that knowledge is already here. So we could do that. We could very easily be the next New Zealand, be the spaceport here, and create that space ecosystem.
We only have 4 minutes left, and I want to have like a final message for each of you to our audience. So how do you think that we can inspire more students, young people, teachers, and the general community to support you and also to support the aerospace industry as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great point. At the end of the day, the future of spaceports here in Puerto Rico, really the whole future, it's about our children. It's not about us. So what we're really doing is laying the groundwork and training our children so that we can pass the baton and they can go on to do even greater things. So I just think from the outset, it has to be part of the overall vision is exactly that, addressing how we're bringing the young folks in early and transitioning them into this sort of work. So some practical examples that I'm in Austin, Texas now, splitting my time between here and Puerto Rico. That's where I built Firefly. I established a nonprofit called Firefly Academy, which was an offshoot of our company, sponsored the University of Texas to form something that was called the Texas Rocket Engineering Lab. And the goal of that lab is to become the first university to do a liquid-fueled launch above the Kármán line to space. And it's just amazing how augmenting the book curriculum with practical experience out in the field, testing rockets, building rockets, engines, how much that adds to the educational experience. So for our part, what we would do as we set up the spaceport and we set up the companies here, exactly the same thing. I actually have $10 million worth of rocket hardware ready to ship to Puerto Rico now, so we can set up a hands-on shop to educate the students and set up something similar to the Texas Rocket Engineering Lab instead of Puerto Rico Rocket Lab here when we come here as well.
Yeah, so that was, I don't know that I can match that. So I'll talk about the Puerto Rican perspective. Puerto Ricans, we like our heroes. We need our, Felix Trinidad in the space industry. And there's plenty of them. We have 2 astronauts that are from Puerto Rico. We need to start talking about these folks. Those are our national heroes that are out there, and so that the community and the students can see themselves as something, they can see that as something that they can actually do. And there's plenty. NASA, the Space Force, they're full of great examples from Puerto Rico, great Puerto Ricans that study here and ended up going there and having some great careers. We need to find those heroes and put them in front of folks, put them in front of students, and tell those stories.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have a couple of minutes for questions and answers, but before doing that, in order to close this session, thank you for lifting us, for inspiring us with your wonderful vision and work. And every day I put all my hope and passion in what I do through Exploratorio. And we have an innovative space learning activity center, especially for students, teachers, and the general community so that they can learn about Artemis, they can learn about the programs that the commercial industry is doing, so that this is not something that is far from us, it's something that is close to our heart. And as long as we know that it's close to our heart, that is something that we can achieve, that we can see these engineers that are from Puerto Rican origin and that are working, that are successful, and that are willing to come back and give their best for the education and for the support of our communities. That is really wonderful, and we need to continue to address that. One of our goals is to plant the seeds that inspires and builds a stronger workforce in the aerospace industry. Also, I think that we all need to view the future with optimism, and I hope that you can all find new ideas, opportunities, and connections in this summit, because definitely we are ready for liftoff. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you, Tom and Israel, for being such wonderful leaders in the industry. Thank you. Big applause.
All right, that was a great way to start the Icon Summit. You know, I was excited about just Krispy Kreme opening in Puerto Rico, but a spaceport? That's crazy. Listen, when I come to these conferences around the world and I'm attending, I either write down things that relate to my industry, or if it doesn't relate directly to my industry, I always like to write down a feeling, right? So for me, my takeaway from both of you and the feeling that I got from this was being hopeful, right? I went to the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez, and it is one of the best universities for engineers, I would say, in the world. And it's a shame that a lot of them and a lot of us have had to leave in order to create our careers and figure out a way to come back. So everything that you're talking about, creating those jobs and keeping them here and giving better quality of life to the people of Puerto Rico is always going to be at the forefront of the stuff that we support. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I'm pretty sure everyone's got questions for this amazing cast that's up here. So if anybody has a question, please raise your hand. I have a couple right here. Can we run the mic? And don't worry, we have a couple of minutes to do so. Let's just keep it concise and in topic. We want to be respectful of the other panelists. Ahí al frente?
No.
Okay, right in the back over here.
Hey, thank you, Joe and Israel, for being here. It's really exciting stuff. I was just having conversations last week on the potential for a spaceport in Puerto Rico. The question that I had, and this was part of those discussions as well, is there's clearly the potential here, the geography works, but what is the appetite from, a policy standpoint, right? Because obviously this is a big lift to acquire the land, get the permitting, everything like that. Is this something that the government is embracing, or is there going to be, a 5-year delay getting everything approved? And as we see, a lot of these capital projects winding up getting bottlenecked because of those issues.
Yeah, I can just tell you my experience. Everyone that I've worked with here in Puerto Rico is very excited about the prospects of doing this, and very, very supportive. The current administration, I've worked with and talked to folks throughout the current administration, and look forward to after the election to working with the next folks that are in office. But certainly within the economic development areas, the LRA, the Port Authority, everyone has been incredibly supportive. In fact, we're having meetings tomorrow, but it's going to be a process. You know, the working through the environmental process, working through the FAA licensing process, these are things that are going to take years. You know, there are obviously, when you're doing stuff like this, everyone should be concerned. There are safety hazards that need to be addressed. There are, you know, environmental hazards that need to be addressed. They're all manageable. Folks have done it other places, but I think the one thing that everyone should be encouraged by as far as the bureaucracy goes is there is a very methodical process to assuring that this is going to be a good thing through these FAA and EPA reviews. So anyone that has concerns should be reassured that, you know, everything is going to be done right and that all their questions will be satisfactorily answered as part of the process.
Yeah, I think the government have been very supportive. You probably all know Joel Pisa. He has been a champion of a spaceport here for many years now. And just more recently, Jennifer Gonzalez added a spaceport in her platform, her candidacy platform for the PNP, the PNP. So that was very exciting, and I had nothing to do with that. So I was very, very happy to see that in her platform. And the challenge is going to be the community, right? The local community. We still have to talk to them, making sure that they understand that space launch, it's safe. It's going to be a benefit to Puerto Rico. We're going to have to go do the studies and make sure that what we're saying is true, right? So there's going to be some environmental hurdles that we'll have to, studies that we have to go through. There's the FAA license that it's a very, very long process that we have to go through, like Tom said. But as of right now, I believe the local, at least the existing and potentially future administrations are supportive.
One more thing I'd like to add is that the situation in the U.S. is very crowded. There is definitely a need for more launch capability. So, you know, we're pretty confident that we will get strong support from Washington to do this as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So that is a great point. Cape Canaveral and Vandenberg are overcrowded. There is a need for the United States by far is the biggest space industry in the world. I know most of them, out of the $660 billion, about 500 are generated in the United States. And they're running out of space, right? Cape Canaveral is overcrowded. You cannot reach a lot of the key orbits from a lot of the other spaceports in the United States. So Puerto Rico is in a great location. There's a great opportunity to capitalize in that growing market right now.
Just one more thing I want to add. This is a really important question. Those launch sites are becoming very crowded, and you have a population of very small rockets, medium-sized launches, big rockets. I'm sure many of you saw like Starship, which is a massive rocket launching before. So what Puerto Rico can be is kind of an outlet for the smaller to medium-sized rockets to come down here and launch, and we can keep all the larger rocket launches up in the U.S. mainland.
We have time for one quick question. Oh, we have the mic over here. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name's Mario, and I believe I heard you guys mention revitalizing former military bases. Have you guys contemplated or thought of the West Coast, in particular, former Ramey Air Force Base? I heard, the reason why I'm asking is that was a potential alternative in case of an emergency for the space shuttle to land because of the length of the runway.
Yeah, in general, you want to launch east over water. So the East Coast is more attractive for space launch? Just quick question, and then maybe we can do another
No,
question.
I mean,
Let's go
you
answer.
know what? I like this topic, and I was like, all right, I'll talk less on my next segment, and then we'll have more questions. So right here, could you pass the mic to the gentleman with the blue coat, please?
You intrigued me when you were talking about how crowded the space is. Last week, a bunch of environmental commissions decided that SpaceX can no longer launch from Vandenberg, which is where we launch our rockets from. Since you know Elon so well, what's the chances of getting some of those rockets? Because if Vandenberg is going to be a political hot point, why can't they come here? How long will it take you to be able to take those rockets and put them to some place that would say, yes, please give us those rockets? Because that just seems like a natural.
Yeah, I think Elon's about going to Mars. So, ever since I met Elon, single-mindedly, we're going to Mars. And, he's about the same age as me, and we're like, got to get to Mars pretty soon. So to get to Mars, you just need bigger and bigger and bigger rockets, okay? And we don't want those in Puerto Rico. But what we can do is we can get all the small rockets out of Elon's way at those other launch sites so that they have less crowding and they'll have less of the issues that you talked about.
Yeah, I think the way to phrase that, because like Tom said, we will only have here, I mean, the plan is to have small and medium launch rockets. So somewhere around 16 to 17,000 kilograms to LEO will be the high end of what we'll be launching out of here. So what that can do is you take the pressure out of SpaceX to having to launch all the time. Right now, we almost have a little quasi-monopoly because SpaceX continues. It's, a lot of the satellites have to go with SpaceX. So if they're like right now where they're down, it creates a backlog of those satellites that need to go to orbit. And then we would be able from Puerto Rico to take away some of that pressure and then launch from here, alleviating the pressure. We wouldn't do it with a Falcon 9. We would do it with, like the Alpha. Examples are the Firefly Alpha, which is a small launch, 1,000 kilograms to LEO, or the Firefly MLB, or the Neutron, which is the Rocket Lab medium-sized rocket. Those are the type of rockets that we will be launching out of here.
The regulatory part is the long pole. We could build a launch site like this, and I've done it before in like 2 years. But regulatory, I think, is probably a 3-year process. So I think we're realistically looking at 4 or 5 years before we're launching. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm estimating too. It has taken other spaceports sometimes 7 to 8 years to go through the regulatory licenses and being able to have an operational spaceport. I think we can do it faster here in Puerto Rico, but we're still looking at 3 to 4 years before we can have our first launch in Puerto Rico. Working with people like Tom that have already built launch sites in multiple places and is an expert will help accelerate that timeline. But still, the regulatory at the beginning, it's going to be the long pole.
Well, that's all the time we have for the first panel right now. We're going to have Ricky and Carla come up stage to take a picture with y'all. Thank you so much for your time, for your skills, expertise.